We're recapping 17 games worth of action on fantasy baseball today. I'm Chris Towers here with Scott White, and there is so much to get to in today's action that honestly, I feel like I'm drowning a bit. 17 games, a couple of double headers, a bunch of big performances, and we're going to start with the oh my goodness gracious player of the night, and let's see if I can do. I've got trying to be a little technical here, up the standards of the show with Frank on. Let's see if this works.
He's good.
He is Christian Moore, the number 8 pick in this year's MLB draft, who homered twice today. He's already up to AA for the Rocket City Trash Pandas. That was a call from the Rocket City Trash Pandas broadcast. Shout out to listener Travis Robideau for that one. Maybe we'll get Christian Moore on a prospect spotlight because he's on the Angels. We might see him in the majors in the next couple of days.
Just the fact they've already moved him up to AA and he's producing there. I did not expect to lead the show with Christian Moore.
Well, that's not actually the oh my goodness gracious player of the night. It was kind of a sneak one. No. We're going to the real Los Angeles Angels. My oh my goodness gracious, he's good player of the night is Zachary Netto, who at least for one day was the king of New York. In a doubleheader against the Yankees, he went 4 for 9 with 2 home runs, including a grand slam, 2 runs scored, 8 RBI. He is hitting .350 with a .950 slugging percentage in the month of August. 3 home runs. It's a 6-game sample size, but he remains on a 22 homer, 28 stolen base pace for the season. And I know we've talked a lot this season about how it's kind of an empty 2025-ish pace and has been for a while, but he is 73% rostered, and the change to batting second in the lineup for the Angels does change his outlook a little bit. Is Zach Netto at 73% rostered? Is that too low, Scott?
It might be, and I've had a difficult time.
You've been the skeptic.
Yeah, that's fair. And, even now he's on pace for, this isn't updated with today's stats. Obviously, he had, 8 RBI between the 2 games?
8 RBI, yeah.
Entering today, he was on pace for 73 RBI, 70 runs. Mm-hmm. So even with the nice home run stolen base combination, that does limit his appeal in fantasy. But he entered today just inside the top 12 at shortstop in year-to-date production in head-to-head points leagues, which you'd think would be his lesser format. So he's just crept inside the top 12 there. He was behind Ha-Sung Kim. So, I don't know that's that strong of an endorsement for Zach Netto, but he's technically a top 12 shortstop now. And so I think we need to take that seriously. Obviously, some shortstops who we will probably continue to like more who are outside the top 12. Mookie Betts, of course, who will be back next week.
Carlos Correa should be back relatively soon. I would think he's in the same spot.
O'Neal Cruz, I would say I like more still. Jackson Merrill, I like more. Trey Turner's still catching up from the time he missed and not inside the top 12 in year-to-date production. So realistically, I'm not sure I can rank him much higher than 16th or 17th. I see Xander Bogaerts is down here too. I'd rather have Bogaerts than Netto. So that's part of the issue is just shortstop has a lot of players who either are good or should be good
But cracking the top 18 at shortstop, that's no small feat.
It's not. I mean, Zach Netto's a fantasy asset at this point. It's just a question of, does he need to be rostered everywhere in leagues without middle infield spots? Yeah. I think it's fine if you're rostering him and playing in those formats, but I don't feel like he's a difference maker in those formats.
All right. Who is your he's good player of the night?
We didn't discuss this beforehand.
We did not.
I'm going to have to pick it out on the fly here because it's not like we do it every night or anything.
There's no way you could have seen this coming.
No way I could have seen it coming. Let's go with Jackson. Which Jackson? Holiday. I want to do Jackson.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I do have a segment later in the show. We've got a bunch of would you rathers coming up. And so I'll just move this one up. But go ahead and talk about Jackson Holiday.
So he homered again.
Yeah, he did.
Straight game with the home run. And wasn't a cheapie. 424 feet. That was probably a clip from the announcer that was worth taking and using in future installments. He was pretty excited. So yeah, 3 straight games with a home run for Jackson Holiday. Obviously, he's been great since returning from the minors. He's not 21 yet.
Nope.
And he joins a pretty impressive list of players who've homered in 3 consecutive games prior to turning 21. The complete list, this is according to Jake Rill on Twitter, an Orioles beat reporter for MLB.com. The complete list, players who've homered in 3 consecutive games prior to their 21st birthday. Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto did it twice. Giancarlo Stanton did it twice. Ronald Acuna, Jason Hayward, Justin Upton. Those are probably the least impressive names. Miguel Cabrera, Orlando Cepeda, Willie Mays, Mel Ott twice, and Eddie Mixis. I've actually never heard of him. But that's it. That's the entire list. That is the company Jackson Holiday is now in. And what a turnaround. What a turnaround. I think it's just, obviously Jackson Holiday needs to be rostered everywhere at this point. And yes, I would take him over Zach Netto. Would you? Zach Netto?
Yeah. Holiday? Yeah, I would take Jackson Holiday over Zach Netto.
It's just a reminder that development can happen very suddenly. You know, it's because he was inept in April.
A 50% strikeout rate.
A disaster.
In his first taste of the majors. Yeah.
1 hit. And now all of a sudden it's like he's everything he was supposed to be all along, looking exactly like that top overall prospect he was at the start of the year. So I've been struggling the last few years with how exactly I should approach prospects, high-end prospects in drafts. Because they're just not paying off as immediately as they used to. And, you know, every league where I drafted Jackson Holiday, which was a lot, virtually all of them, I ended up dropping him, waiting for him to come back. And so it was a wasted pick. And, you know, I have him in a couple leagues. Maybe I got him back. Maybe there was a couple where I kept him because they were deep enough for that. But in most cases, he's on somebody else's team now. And so I don't even get the benefit. And so I still don't know what I want to do with it. I still don't know what my plan is with it going forward. But I think if nothing else, you have to go in thinking, I'm only going to take him if I can afford to be very, very patient, or if it's such a shallow league that I don't even need to worry about that, you know? I don't know. I'm still sorting it out, but this is just a reminder that, like, things can change very quickly when you have players this talented.
He has, since coming back, 17 batted balls in, 7 games? So 17 balls in play. 11 of them have been hit 100 miles per hour or harder. That was the biggest question I had about Jackson Holiday back in the spring. You know, it seemed like a safe bet for, you know, advanced approach at the plate, batting average, maybe some steals, good lineup. I had some questions about the power. Now, all of a sudden, he's hitting for power and doing all the other stuff we thought he would. So it's been very impressive. I don't know how long he can keep it up, but I do want to ask, would you rather the Jackson edition? Would you rather have Jackson Holiday rest of season or Jackson Merrill, who is also incredibly young, also had 2 home runs on Wednesday, 411 and 442 feet. But he had just 1 home run in July. And he is one of those guys who the underlying numbers have been excellent, like since the second he stepped on the field in April. And then the actual numbers outside, especially of that one stretch in Was it June when he had like 8 home runs in 10 games? Feels like forever ago. It must have been
something
June.
like that.
Or maybe May. But either way,
it was June. I don't remember what the exact number of home runs was, but it was June.
Yeah, since then, obviously the power has not been there, and he might be one of those guys who, 351 xWOBA, 326 actual WOBA, 295 xBA, 496 xSlug, but doesn't pull the ball a ton, and so might be one of those guys who's not quite optimized. Who would you rather have, though, Merrill or Holiday?
So I have him one spot apart in my rankings. That was prior to tonight. And Merrill was the one spot ahead. And I got to looking into it more, obviously, in reaction to this 2-homer day for Jackson Merrill. Because, the home runs hadn't been there in July. And was it just this fluky thing that happened? And we can't actually expect him to be a great source of power rest of season. His fly ball rate since the start of June, so the month where he hit all the home runs, and then also July where he hit just the one, and now the little bit of August, his fly ball rate, Jackson Merrill's, is over 40% during that time, which is a fly ball rate where if you're hitting the ball hard, it's going to result in home runs. And so I think the July where he hit just one home run, I think that's more the fluke than not. And in fact, the expected stats are showing this now too. Jackson Merrill has a 295 expected batting average. That's kind of been true all along, the high expected batting average. The expected slug, though, now for Merrill is 496. Very good expected slug. His actual slug is 467, so he's underperforming it. I think the power breakthrough, we have more evidence now to confirm that it was legitimate, and I don't think this 2-homer game is going to be the last indication of it going forward.
It's worth noting, like Jackson Merrill, did he even get to AA last year?
I think he barely did.
Yeah, okay. He played 46 games AA, had a 782 OPS. He was 20 on opening day. He didn't turn 21 until a couple weeks into the season. Learning a brand new position at the major league level on the fly. Really, really impressive rookie season for Jackson Merrill. And I think the Padres have a very, very special player on their hands moving forward. So really good stuff from him. And we are going to take a quick break. Before we do, make sure you subscribe to the FBT newsletter. It's right there above Scott's left-hand shoulder. And that's your left, right? Yeah. Makes me feel good when you subscribe, because, boy, I'll tell you, this week, doing the newsletter and the podcast hosting, I'm going to sleep well on Friday morning at about 5 a.m. when I've been going to sleep this week. So make sure you subscribe. We got the code right there, and we will be right back after this message.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Baseball today. Let's move on to news and notes from Wednesday. And unfortunately, another significant injury to another significant pitcher suffered an injury. Not clear if Joe Ryan's injury is significant, but he was removed from his start on Wednesday in the third inning due to right triceps tightness. I guess if you want to be optimistic, triceps aren't generally too significant of an injury for starting pitchers, as long as it's not like actually an elbow injury or something that just manifests in tricep injury. But look, any arm issue probably leads to an IL trip, and it wouldn't be at all surprising if that's what we find for Joe Ryan. Hopefully not, but we'll learn more on Thursday. Along that same line, Grayson Rodriguez was placed on the IL on Wednesday. No surprise after he was scratched from Tuesday's start. There's no timetable as of now, but he'll be out at least 15 days. Though manager Brandon Hyde did say Wednesday the team is optimistic that Rodriguez will pitch again this year, whether that's, in late September or late August, obviously matters a lot. Is he a mustache player?
Do they have MRI results? Has there been?
I didn't see anything there.
Because if he's optimistic he's going to pitch again this year with less than 8 weeks remaining, that makes it sound like it's a very insignificant lat issue. Mm-hmm. Remember the one he had 2 years ago, Grayson Rodriguez, it cost him 3 months. So people have been asking me throughout the day, can I drop Grayson Rodriguez? I wouldn't. I mean, if they come out later and say it's a grade whatever strain and he's going to miss a bunch of weeks, then
sounds like a mild right lat strain, and they did do an MRI. So
unless the outlook changes, if they're optimistic he's going to return, I'd rather him return for my team than somebody else's.
All right. Jurickson Profar was forced to leave Wednesday's game after being hit by a pitch on his right knee. He tried to stay in the game, but had to be replaced by a pinch runner because he just was not moving right after a single by the hitter behind him. Good news is x-rays came back negative. He is day-to-day for right now, so hopefully that ends up being a relatively minor issue. Did you see why Ryan Feltner was pulled from his start? He made it through just 1 inning, 24 pitches, but as of like midnight, I had not seen any details on it.
I mean, I didn't see.
It doesn't.
I don't know how much I care.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
So we can move on.
I'll look it up while you keep going.
Nick Pivetta will have his next start skipped as he is dealing with some arm fatigue. That is not terribly surprising after his velocity was down like 2 miles per hour in his most recent start. And I think he only threw like 70 something pitches. So not a great sign for a guy that has already gone on the IL this season with an elbow strain, although the Red Sox do not expect him to go on the IL at this point. He will probably be back next week. How do you feel about Nick Pivetta moving forward?
I mean, I think you probably hold on to him too, except in shallower leagues. I'm more likely to hold on to Grayson Rodriguez than Pivetta just because he's more impactful, but it does sound like there's an even greater chance Pivetta will be back than Grayson Rodriguez. I do have the update on Ryan Feltner for the 5% of leagues where he's rostered. He exited due to a shoulder and lat issue. Bud Black said he's likely headed to the IL.
Okay. All right. Dylan Cease will start at some point this weekend against the Marlins after getting through just 1 inning Wednesday before a rain delay. That could push Joe Musgrove's return from the IL to next week, which would make him a 2-start pitcher probably next week. I'm not actually sure I love that though, because what I really would have rather have seen was Joe Musgrove make a start against the Marlins this weekend, look good, and then I could have some clarity about whether I want to start him next week. Now we might go into a 2-start week with a historically must-start pitcher who I have no idea if I want to start and would think in a roto league, probably not.
Yeah, I don't think you can risk it in a roto league. It's just too much of a wild card. As we said a couple times this week, it's not even clear that it's going to be the same Joe Musgrove because there was talk of him changing his delivery to compensate for the bone spur in his elbow. So we have no idea what we're getting. And I mean, look, if you're chasing everything and just got to go for whatever you could get, obviously you're gambling wherever you can. But outside of that scenario, yeah, I'd avoid Musgrove for the 2-start week.
All right. Tyler O'Neill was placed on the IL on Wednesday, retroactive to August 4th, due to an infection in his left calf. He had been out of the lineup with an illness the previous few days, but it sounds like that was a different situation than this, so that's a little worrisome. It doesn't sound like it's a long-term thing. Alex Cora said he won't be able to play in the next probably 3 or 5 days, but he might be back relatively soon. So that's something to keep an eye on. Hope he gets better soon. O'Neal Cruz was out of the lineup for a second straight day to an illness, but he did appear in this game as a pinch hitter later on. So hopefully he'll be back on Thursday. Walker Buehler will make his final rehab start Thursday at AAA with the expectation he'll return to the Dodgers rotation for the first time since June, sometime next week. He's been on the IL with a hip injury / a bad case of the he wasn't very goods before this. And he has continued to not be very good at his AAA rehab assignment. 8 runs and 7 1/3 innings. He's working on mechanics, right? He's probably working on pitches. The goal here was not, let's go get the Oklahoma City Storm Chasers a couple of extra wins with Walker Buehler on the mound. So I don't want to take too much from that. There is still a chance Walker Buehler can make an impact. I'm not really expecting it at this point, though. And the same goes for Bobby Miller, who will also start on Friday at AAA after being delayed a few days by an adductor strain. Sounds like both have a chance to be back in the Dodgers rotation before the end of the month, but I'm at a total wait and see with Walker Buehler and Bobby Miller. Who do you expect more from the rest of the way?
I don't know that I have expectations for either.
Yeah.
To be honest, I expect either one could be good. I don't know that I'm expecting it, though, because they've just... Look, Bobby Miller, first start of the season, I think he struck out 11 in 6 shutout innings or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a dominant start. And since then, between the majors and minors, I think he's had an ERA over 8. So how could you have any confidence in him at this point? And Walker Buehler hasn't shown much in either the majors or minors either, coming back from his second Tommy John surgery.
I mean, we haven't seen anything from Walker Buehler since 2022 at this point. I don't think we've seen him pitch like an ace since like 2021, because if I remember correctly, 2022 was not a great season for Walker Buehler.
If you're asking me who I think has the brighter future, just broadly speaking, Bobby Miller.
Yeah.
But I don't have any confidence in him being useful this year.
All right, Ha-Seong Kim has missed the past 2 games due to his triceps injury. It doesn't appear to be a long-term issue at this point. The Orioles, remember, they sent Heston Kjerstad down to AAA a couple of, I believe, at the All-Star or at the trade deadline. He has been recalled from AAA and added to the 10-day IL, retroactive to August 1st, with a concussion. So indicates that he was dealing with some lingering symptoms when he was hit in the head by a pitch almost a month ago. So that's one of those things with concussions that you can get cleared and it'll still take a little while for symptoms to go away. So that's a little scary. A's pitcher Luis Medina had Tommy John surgery Wednesday, ending his season and likely keeping him out for all of 2025. Louis Varland will start during the Twins doubleheader against the Guardians Friday. I know he's someone who has had some appeal, but has not really been very useful when he's been out there this season. Any expectations there?
All
right.
No, I would say not.
Marcus Stroman has been pushed back to Sunday against the Rangers so he can try to work on his mechanics. Before he takes the mound next, he has a 6.87 ERA over his past 8 starts. If you haven't dropped him now, well, I guess he'll have a chance to show you something before waivers run on Sunday, but you can probably drop him. It's not like the upside is ever super high there. Drew Rasmussen has been activated from the IL, and he will pitch out of the Rays bullpen. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery. Probably won't make much of a fantasy impact unless he somehow forces his way into the closer discussion. Chris Martin was activated from the IL Wednesday for the Red Sox after missing a month due to a sore right elbow. And James Outman was optioned back to AAA to clear a roster spot for Miguel Rojas. Outman has just been an absolute disaster with the Dodgers after a very promising rookie season, hitting 148 and being sent down to the minors multiple times now. I've had him in a few leagues this season, and it has not gone well. So hoping for better days ahead at some point for James Outman, but probably not this season. And before we move on to the rest of Wednesday's action, let's take one more break. We'll be right back on Fantasy Baseball Today.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Baseball today, and I feel like this is like the third time I've done this week, but I don't have a lot of bits. You know, I'm not a very creative person, so we're just gonna fire up the worryometer again. You ready for it, Scott? 0, not worried at all. 10, your hair is on fire and you're freaking out, and maybe you're dropping the player, although that doesn't necessarily apply across the board. So, you know, whatever. Cole Reagans. Worryometer for Cole Reagans, who the line was good today. 1 earned run in 6 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 7 strikeouts, 2 walks against the Red Sox. However, four-seam fastball velocity down 1 mile per hour in this one. That has been a recurring issue for him over the past month or so. And it's worth noting, he gave up 3 unearned runs, including 2 home runs. So while the line was good, the pitching, not quite as good. What's the worryometer on Cole Reagans, who has a 3.80 ERA over his past 23 2/3 innings?
Well, it's getting up there. It's probably about a 4 now. I actually did lower him from 7th in my rankings to 10th. Still my 10th overall starting pitcher, but it's concerning for a number of reasons. One, it seems to be impacting his performance now. First, not so much, but the last few starts, he's looked more vulnerable. And 2, his big breakout last year was fueled on a big velocity increase, more than the amount he's lost over these last.
Yeah, he's still up from where he was before.
Right, but that was the key to everything for Reagans, was adding all that velocity. So, no, he's still got 18 swinging strikes. He's still had more than a strikeout per inning. I still think he could be good like this, but will he be as dominant? Is this something he's doing intentionally? We went through it after his last start. Is he doing it to improve his command? Well, he was actually throwing strikes at a lower rate with this diminished velocity than he was before. So I don't know that there's much evidence to support that. I'm kind of worried. Not so much that I'm like panic dropping him or anything, but a little concerned. Yeah.
Where are we at on Freddie Peralta, who gave up 4 earned runs in 5 innings against the Braves on Wednesday, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks. He got off to a pretty good start, like a 3.40 ERA in April. He's had an ERA over 4 in each of the past 3 months. Now, I guess it's worth pointing out, it hasn't been any higher than like a 4.6 ERA. So it's not like Freddie Peralta has been a disaster at any point. He's just been a disappointment, right? It's like a 3.80 ERA, a 3.90 xERA. What's your worryometer on him?
I don't know that I'm worried. I think he's kind of in line with who he normally is. Maybe I'd worry if I just looked at his final 17 starts last year. I think it was. I'm going off memory from March, so that'd be amazing if it actually was 17 starts. I got it pulled up here now.
It sounds
final
right.
11 starts. It wasn't as many as 17. So final
it's
11
still a
starts
prime number.
Last year, Freddie Peralta had a 2.44 ERA and a million strikeouts, and just looked like an out and out ace. And so if that's what I was expecting going into this year, then yeah, it doesn't look like you're going to get that. But maybe it's just because Freddie Peralta is not that. You know, his control.
He's the right-handed Blake Snell.
His control comes and except
not as extreme, maybe
when the ups and downs are.
Yeah,
Blake Snell, we've learned to just sit him until he takes off and then never sit him again. With Freddie Peralta, I think you just always start him and take some lumps.
Yeah,
but the ups are worth the downs, and that's about it. So worryometer for Freddie Peralta, I think it's pretty much a 1.
All right. What about Taj Bradley, who's had a couple of ugly starts in a row now? And the problem is, I'm not sure there's a good explanation for his struggles. The pitch mix still looks very similar to when he was dominating. Velocity's not really down. Still got 5 whiffs with the splitter on this in this start. The problem is Taj Bradley always gives up hard contact. Like even when he was doing really well in June and July, there was a lot of like averaging 91 miles per hour average exit velocity starts, and he just was avoiding walks and getting strikeouts, which he didn't do in this one. 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, and 4 2/3 innings, en route to 5 earned runs. What's the worryometer on Taj Bradley?
Oh, not particularly high. I will say 2.5.
Okay.
For Taj Bradley. What he was doing during that dominant stretch, an 0.82 ERA and 9 starts, you knew he was going to give some of that back.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you allowed hard contact in those starts where you're giving up more contact, they could go sideways. Every pitcher has warts, right? But I think what we've seen with Taj Bradley this year with the strikeout potential, I see him as a top 25 pitcher rest of season still, even though he's got a couple of bad starts. I know there's a tendency to evaluate pitchers based on their most recent start. No, Taj Bradley's terrible now. You know, it's baseball. There are going to be ups and downs. I think he's fine.
All right, let's go in a completely opposite direction with a totally different contraption. Let's fire up the drop-o-meter with 4 starting pitchers who are, it's fair to say, going through it right now. We'll start with Cutter Crawford, who, hey, good news, he only allowed 1 home run in this outing. Bad news, he still allowed 6 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings to the Kansas City Royals. That's 13 homers in his past 4 starts. Scott, I know you've had a lot of skepticism about Cutter Crawford lately. He's still 90% roster. Where is he at on the drop-o-meter? Let's say 1 is there's no way you're dropping him. 10 is get this full out of my face.
I want to say 10 just because that's
how frustrated you are.
Thing to say. But realistically, I don't see myself dropping him in like a 15-team league. So I will say 8 for Cutter Crawford. Trying to pull up how far I've moved him down my rankings, because that'll give us an even better idea. So prior to this start, I had moved Cutter Crawford down to 70th among starting pitchers. So yeah, I don't think he can survive in the way the ball's played lately. Too much of a fly ball pitcher. And like you said, the home runs weren't even an issue in this one, and he still had problems.
What about Gavin Stone? 4 2/3 innings, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts in this one. He is 84% rostered, and it's been a pretty rocky season for Gavin Stone on the whole. There have been some really, really good stretches, 1.97 ERA in both May and June, but 4.5 ERA in the month of March/April, 6.27 in July, and now he's given up 8 runs in 8 2/3 innings in August. And the problem with Gavin Stone is, for the most part, the strikeouts have never really been there. So he was really relying early on, when he was succeeding, on generating a ton of weak contact, and that has not been the case lately. Where are we at on Gavin Stone?
Where we are on Gavin Stone is not interested. It's been bad for a long time now. Did you give the numbers already?
Yeah, it's an ERA over 7 since the start of July.
Yeah, and this is from a guy with like less than 7K per 9. I really don't see what the point is in hanging on to Gavin Stone at this point. I think if we're doing drop-o-meter, it's a full 10.
Are we at the same spot with Jake Irvin, who gave up 5 earned runs here in 5 innings against the Giants? He has a 5.48 ERA since July 1st. The fundamentals of his game are the same. He's an average-ish strikeout pitcher with good control, which is what he's been during this season. It was what he was when things were going well. He's got an xERA over 4, which is very similar to Cutter Crawford's for the season now. Jake Irvin on the drop-o-meter.
I'm not as down on him, but probably like 6.5, 7.
Okay.
I I'm thinking of some of my 12-team leagues, and if there's any pitcher out there in them that I'd be willing to drop Jake Irvin for. Like I'm not so attached to Irvin that it's like,
Hayden
I can't get rid of him. That's pretty close.
Okay.
I think I'd rather have Birdsong, but I might change my mind depending on how their next starts go. That's how close it is.
What about like Tyler Mahle or Eduardo Rodriguez?
I think I'd rather stick with Irvin.
What about Sean Manaea is actually 86% roster. That's way too high. Yeah, there's just not a lot of interesting guys out there. Paul Blackburn, David Festa, but I wouldn't mind in a shallow league like just streaming the hot hand or whoever's got the best matchup. And then I think I know what the answer is going to be here, but Andrew Abbott. 6 earned runs in 5 innings against the Marlins, 7 strikeouts, 3 walks, but has not been the same guy over the past couple of starts as he was early on, and we never bought it.
No, we never bought it. But he was going against the Marlins, and I got to pick out these 10 sleeper pitchers every week. So I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you, Andrew Abbott, and you let us down. 3 home runs to this janky Marlins lineup. Get out of my sight.
Full 10.
Yeah, I don't think he's that good anyway. So I'm generally repulsed by the idea of a rage drop, but you can rage drop him because he's not that good.
All right, let's move on to some waiver wire pitchers. Not a ton of exciting options today, but I do think Paul Blackburn is kind of interesting. I don't think he's certainly not an ace, but he has made some changes since getting to the Mets through his cutter around 40% of the time today. He's up to about 35% overall on the 2 starts. Change up around 25%. Both of those marks way up from when he was in Oakland. And it's led to 12 strikeouts, 4 walks, and 2 earned runs over 12 innings in 2 starts. What do you think about Paul Blackburn?
I don't know. I mean, you mentioned changes he's made. So he did throw his cutter a lot more. It's like twice as often in this one, 40% rather than 20%. It entered the day with a 333 batting average against. Mm-hmm. So I don't know I necessarily want Paul Blackburn to do that. I think he's the sort of pitcher who can fake us out for stretches. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want to buy in too hard to this particular stretch.
All right, let's talk about some real low-end types and just tell me if any of these 4 guys deserve to be rostered in your standard 12-team league. Valente Beletso for the Marlins, 5 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 0 earned runs. He almost got to, I think the Marlins have gone like 37 games without a quality start, and he got real close. I don't really see anything there. 3.68 career ERA in the minors, 343 strikeouts to 335 innings. Joey Estes did well against the White Sox, 2 earned runs in 5 innings. I think that's probably just the White Sox, but he does have a 3.08 ERA over the past 5 outings. Bowden Francis has been decent in his past 2 starts, both against the Orioles, 5 earned runs in 10 2/3 innings, but not great. And Davis Martin, 4 strikeouts in 6 innings, shutout against the Athletics, 11 whiffs on 82 pitches, but bad minor leaguer numbers for a 27-year-old at the major league level. Any interest in any of those 4 guys?
Well, Davis Martin had good minor league numbers this year. Mm-hmm. 3.43 ERA, 110 WHIP, 10.7 K per 9. Probably nothing happening there. Realistically, Bowden Francis, I remain kind of intrigued by because his minor league numbers aren't just pretty good. He looks like the best pitcher in the world in the minors for 2 years in a row now. He had in 6 appearances, 4 starts, a .93 ERA, .57 WHIP, 11.2 K per 9 at AAA Buffalo. And now Bowden Francis, in this start, I noticed he was throwing his splitter and slider a lot more, ditched the curveball, which had been his number 2 pitch and hadn't gotten great results. So he seems to be changing things up here. And I don't know, there's been enough success in the minors that I'm taking him halfway seriously. Not to the point that I'm looking to add Bowden Francis outside of like AL only leagues. But it wouldn't surprise me if he became something halfway useful.
All right, let's move on to waiver wire hitters. Would you rather edition? I said we were doing some would you rathers. We did the Jackson Merrill, Jackson Holiday. We're going to group some waiver wire targets, and you tell me which one you would rather have. And I guess whether they need to be rostered more widely than they already are. Josh Bell for the Diamondbacks. It's like identical to what happened last year. He got traded. I think he had a 701 OPS at the trade deadline last year. This year it was 699. He went 3 for 9 with 2 homers in the doubleheader. Both of those in game 2. He now has 2 home run games, 4 in 6 games overall with the Diamondbacks. He is 58% rostered. Would you rather have him or Jake Berger, who homered twice in his game as well, has 4 in 7 August games and 9 since the All-Star break? Obviously, if you're looking for a corner infielder or a first baseman, both of these guys are options. Who would you rather have?
Yeah, obviously, if you need a third baseman, Berger's the only choice.
Pretty easy call there.
Yeah. So Bell, you mentioned his numbers with the Diamondbacks, but he has, in his last 13 games, Marlins or Diamondbacks, 352 with 9 home runs. Of course, Berger's been very hot too. I would say I don't have a particularly strong opinion. It would probably come down to who has the strongest matchups next week, and I haven't looked into that yet.
Sounds like both could be sleeper hitters for next week, though.
They could be.
I'm just going to fill in 2 of those 10 spots for you already, buddy.
Well, let's see what the matchups are. My gut says Berger.
Berger.
Bell, because of the better supporting cast. I just overruled my gut. How do you like it?
Buddy, if I could do that. All right, let's move on to some catchers. Would you rather Kyle Higashioka, who has homered in consecutive games and has 5 since the start of July? He is 8% rostered. Or Adrian Del Castillo, who we mentioned yesterday had been incredible at AAA this season, an OPS north of 1,000. He went 1 for 3 with a double, an RBI, and a walk in his MLB debut. Also a couple of strikeouts. Who would you rather have, Adrian Del Castillo or Kyle Higashioka?
If it's a situation where I get one shot and have to get it right, Higashioka is the safe choice. So I'm thinking like a deep 2-catcher league. But if it's shallower than that and I can just shoot for upside, Del Castillo.
So if it's like a 15-team or an NL only league, you'd probably just go with Higashioka, but anywhere else, Del Castillo?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so.
And let's do one more would you rather. Would you rather add Astros infield prospect Zach DeZenzo, who went hitless in his MLB debut Tuesday, but was 2 for 3 with a walk and 2 runs scored on Wednesday? It's 5% rostered. Or Leo Jimenez of the Blue Jays, who's been filling in for Bo Bichette, 3 for 4 with 3 doubles, 3 hard hit balls on Wednesday night, but he was hitting 230. He's hitting 239 overall with an OPS right around 640 and had a 770 AAA OPS. DeZenzo, a kind of interesting prospect. Who would you rather have there?
Well, Jimenez, I think the most interesting stat you could pull up for Leo Jimenez from AAA was that he reached base at a 416 clip with some amount of power. But yeah, DeZenzo's a better prospect. I think he has, I think it's more likely he's going to play every day for the Astros. He looked great in the second game where he was playing first base after playing DH in the first game. And I don't see a lot to criticize in his hitting profile in the minors. He just looks like a solid all-around offensive player who's going to get a lot of runway here for the Astros. I think he's going to play every day as long as he proves deserving of it. So I would much rather have Zach DeZenzo.
All right. And then not a would you rather, unless it's like, would you rather drop this guy or not, or add this guy or not add him? But look, Eloy Jimenez, he's playing a little bit for the Orioles. I think he sat 1 or 2 games since they acquired him. He's 8 for 16. That's a 500 batting average. 2 doubles, no home runs. I think it's 5 strikeouts and 16 plate appearances. Does he need to be rostered more than 49% of leagues?
Probably, if he's going to keep playing this often. It's 4 straight that he started. Ryan O'Hearn has sat some. Colton Cowser has sat some.
I think Rutschman even sat one of them.
I am concerned that Eloy Jimenez, just because he started 4 straight, doesn't mean he won't be part of the sitting. That's a really good lineup, and I think he's still a talented hitter. As poorly as things had gone for him with the White Sox, it's hard to blame him for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing when you're talking about like Luis Robert as well, where it's just like that team is so hopeless right now that they're professionals, they're getting a lot of money, they should still be good, but like that's one of those unknowable factors, but it wouldn't be unreasonable for a player to struggle that poorly in those poor of circumstances. So yeah, I think like if Eloy Jimenez was in my league, I'd have to be really weak at the utility or DH spot to want to add him, but it's possible I am in some leagues, and it would be worth it. Let's do one more would you rather for the bullpen. Would you rather add Calvin Fauché of the Miami Marlins, who got the save on Wednesday, his 2nd in a row? Sure seems like he's the closer. Or would you rather add Justin Martinez, who in game 1 of the doubleheader was warming up in the bullpen when Paul Sewald was working with a 4-run lead and allowed a couple of base runners, and then came back in the 2nd game of the doubleheader, worked the 9th, got the save? That sounds like a closer to me.
It does, and I wasn't aware that he was warming up in that first game. So I was gonna say, even though he got a save today, the fact Paul Sewald worked the 9th inning with a 4-run lead in game 1 makes it a little iffy what the Diamondbacks are thinking. But that little tidbit about him warming up with a couple men on base, I think that puts me over and into the Justin Martinez is now the front runner for saves for the Diamondbacks. And so, yeah, I think he's a better pitcher than Calvin Fauché. I think if he does hold onto that role, secure that role for the Diamondbacks, I think he'll get more chances. Fauché came really close to blowing it today, and he has like a 150 whip. So I would edge Justin Martinez ahead of him in my rankings now. Less confident that he has the role, but it's not like Fauché is a guarantee to keep it.
Yeah, I mean, if we set the over-under at 6.5 saves for Calvin Fauché the rest of the way, I think I'd take the under. Between the risk of, like you said, a 150 whip. Like he's got a 3.30-ish ERA, I think, but a lot of walks, pretty hittable. I think things could go wrong there. So, yeah, I agree. I'd rather have Justin Martinez, even if I'm less certain that he'll be the closer the rest of the way. And let's move on to talk about some other starting pitchers before we close up. And Tarek Skubal, much just business as usual here. And actually, I'll go ahead and say he's up to 143 innings, 143 and a third innings so far this season. He only threw 94 and 2/3 last year. Obviously, remember, he was coming back from elbow surgery. And nonetheless, his velocity was actually up in this start, about a mile per hour. He averaged like 97.8 with his 4-seam fastball. 21 swings and misses, 12 on his changeup. Might be the best single swing and miss pitch in baseball at this point. He's your number 1 pitcher in fantasy. I think he's your AL Cy Young choice, right?
He was my AL Cy Young choice in October. So, yeah, he remains so now.
All right. Chris Sale cruised through the first 4 innings in this one, and then things kind of fell apart. It was a lot of BABIP, bad luck. I think 4 straight singles at one point, or 4 singles in 6 hitters. Ended up giving up 9 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts in 4 2/3 innings. The slider was really good in this one. No sign of diminished velocity. His hardest thrown pitch actually came in the 5th inning. I don't see any reason to be concerned here, even though obviously, I think there is generally just some let's keep an eye on him vibes, as he is also, at an innings level that he hasn't been at in a long time.
I'm wondering if that's having an adverse effect now, them spacing out his starts, because they said they weren't going to as much in the second half, and yet they inserted Bryce Elder yesterday. So Chris Sale is in the 2-start pitcher rankings every week because he just keeps getting pushed back a day. And this is now 4 of his last 5 starts. He's gone less than 6 innings. He just hasn't been very efficient lately. He's still... all the dominance indicators are there. He's just not as efficient. And
velocity's been fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not really worried, but I'm just kind of frustrated by it more than anything.
All right. George Kirby, 3 earned runs in 5 innings in this one. I did initially tweet out that this was the first time he didn't have a quality start since May 24th. That was actually not true. He only went 5 1/3 innings in his previous outing, but this was the first time that the second time that he's allowed more than 2 earned runs since May 24th. And he hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs in any start since then. So kudos to the Tigers in this one, but I don't really think there's any concerns about George Kirby. Let's talk about do you want to say something?
I mean, I hope not. I just traded for him in the Scott White Dynasty League. So
I think you're in good shape. Let's talk about Blake Snell, who let up some hits this time. 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts in this one, 6 innings against the Washington Nationals. Not as good as the no-hitter, obviously, and it's no surprise that they limited him to 93 pitches after his very first complete game ever, but still more than enough for a solid fantasy outing. Continues to go 4-seam, changeup, curveball very heavily, and really showing excellent command of all 3. He's getting whiffs at the top of the zone with the 4-seamer, throwing the curveball for strikes now, and just burying the changeup at the bottom of the zone for tons of whiffs. There's volatility there, obviously, but like you said earlier, once Snell figures it out, it seems to stay figured out. And I've moved him into the top 12 at starting pitcher.
It was kind of interesting that he mixed in the changeup more, like he threw it more than the curveball when it was a distant third pitch for most of this good stretch Blake Snell has been on. But I don't make anything of it, really. The 2-run homer he allowed, if that one pitch, if he has that one pitch back, this stat line looks pristine. Because he would have just given up 1 run in 6 innings with less than a base runner an inning. And Blake Snell, I think he's still right where we want him to be.
Speaking of changeups and curveballs and whatnot, Yusei Kikuchi looked like he did in Toronto in this one. He completely remade his arsenal in his first start with the Astros, throwing his changeup heavily and fading his curveball almost entirely. In this one, I think he threw them the same amount. Maybe he threw 1 more changeup than curveball. Didn't get a whiff with the changeup, and that might explain why we saw fewer changeups in this one. It just wasn't working as well. Couldn't locate it consistently in the strike zone. I think the zone rate was like 23% or something. So, I mean, look, I think you can look at it this way. It's a little disappointing that he didn't follow up the changes he made in that first start. On the other hand, 8 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings, 2 earned runs allowed. You'll take that.
Yeah, you will if he can keep doing that. I feel like this is always how it goes with Yusei Kikuchi. He can't stick with the game plan. There's just like you see signs of this really dominant pitcher in there, but he just can't sustain it for whatever reason. And I was pretty discouraged by this start, to be honest, after moving him way up in my rankings because, they figured it out. Look, that changeup, it's so dominant. Why wasn't he throwing it more? And then the very next start, it's just not even there for him.
It is, I will point out, a new pitch for him this season. He reworked his changeup in the offseason. It's a completely different grip. So the fact that he doesn't have the feel for it every time out, it's not terribly surprising, but I'll grant it's a little disheartening that he didn't build on the first start. Sure. Michael King, 3 earned runs in 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, 2 walks. I believe the changeup just wasn't there for him today. And it was King's worst performance in over a month, which tells you how good he's been because it really wasn't that bad. And he left his previous start with a calf injury after getting hit by a comebacker. So I'm pretty willing to give a lot of leeway on this one. What did you think of Michael King today?
Yeah, I don't really, no concerns. I mean, previous 12, 250 ERA, 105 whip, 11.1 K per nine. Like I was saying for Taj Bradley earlier, I see Michael King as a top 25 pitcher rest of way, and this little hiccup doesn't change that.
All right. One more pitcher before we close out the show, and that was Luis Gil. And I wanted to make sure that I got this right because I believe he threw his changeup a season low amount of the time in this one. Yeah, only 9% in this one. Clearly just didn't have the feel for it. And you can see 5 innings, didn't give up any runs against the Angels, 2 hits, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts, and needed 107 pitches to get through this 5 innings, which is definitely not what the Yankees want from Luis Gil, who is he's like 100 innings up from where he was last year and the year before. So look, it's a good sign that he was able to get through the outing unscathed without his best stuff. I do wonder at some point when the Yankees are going to, it doesn't seem like an if, it feels like a when they have to limit him. And we could have some Garrett Crochet type outings from Luis Gil, but they're not there yet. How do you feel about Luis Gil?
Yeah, I think you just I don't see him as a must start anymore because the outings have been shorter. But I think he's somebody you keep on your roster, you play the matchups, and you just go wherever it takes you. I'm not even sure. Like, do we have a sell high? Is there a sell high discussion to be had at this point? I imagine most fantasy leagues trade deadlines have passed by now. So, and since he hasn't been out and out dominant lately, I'm not even sure that he would fetch quite the return you're looking for. So I think you just ride it out and be aware that at some point he may become unusable.
All right. There really were not any other noteworthy bullpen updates for this one. Adrian Morejon got a save for the Padres, but that was with Robert Suarez already having pitched the 9th. So Morejon pitched the 10th. It was his first save of the season. Don't think there's anything there. Tanner Scott did. What's up?
Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No. I mean, Tanner Scott came out and kind of bailed Robert Suarez out, but he also walked 3 in a third of an inning. So I don't know if you can really call that bailing him out. What were you going to say, though?
I just wanted to give a mention to 3 hitters who had performances that I think demand mentioning.
Let's do it.
One is Anthony Santander.
2 home runs. Yep.
2 home runs. He's up to 34 on the season.
Incredible.
And 25 since the start of June.
I mean, he was bad early on this season. I remember he was someone that every time I looked at him in the rankings, I was like, why do I have this guy ranked so high? And well, we've seen over the past 2.5 months exactly why.
And with this performance, Anthony Santander is now the 4th best outfielder in head-to-head points leagues this year.
Wow. He's already at a career high in home runs now.
Yep. Okay, the other one is Jackson Chourio, who went 3 for 5 with 2 stolen bases. He's up to 15 on the year. In his last 12,
all 3 Jacksons had good games today.
Yeah, that's true. Last 12 games, Jackson Chourio, 396, 2 home runs, 1 steal. So, I mean, he continues to pick up the pace. His average exit velocity during that 12-game stretch is 88.5. So we're still not seeing that climb very much. And so the power production, I think, is still a little on the underwhelming side, but he's doing enough of everything else that I think he's right on the fringes of being a 3 outfielder league guy, Jackson Chourio.
Oh, my God. I just realized something.
What?
Were you about to mention Kyle Schwarber? I meant to mention him in the opening segment of the show, and I completely forgot he was supposed to be the Olive Garden breadstick. Now it's stale, and it's been sitting on the table for an hour. I'm so sorry.
room temperature
Holy
breadstick.
Schwarber, 4 for 4 with 3 home runs, 7 RBI as a leadoff hitter. He has 5 homers over his past 4 games. He is hitting .261 on the season. OPS 900. He's been awesome.
He's on pace for fewer home runs than the past 2 years, but his batting average is like 50 points higher. And there's been a trade-off there. He hasn't been as extreme of a fly ball hitter this year. So I think it's been a good trade-off for Schwarber overall. It makes him less extreme as a roto option, especially. And in points leagues, I mean, he's still top 10 outfielder, top 8 outfielder. Okay, yeah, I'm glad you got Schwarber in here. The last one I was going to mention, though, Alex Call.
Yes.
Who has taken over for Jesse Winker. 29-year-old. He's gotten chances in the majors before, and it hasn't gone well, but I've always liked the minor league numbers. Really good walk rates down there. He's an unimpressive exit velocity guy who pulls the ball well and gets to some power because of that. Since taking over, and then he went 2 for 5 today with 2 strikeouts. Since taking over in the Nationals outfield, Alex Call is 12 for 27 with a home run, 4 doubles, 2 steals, and twice as many walks as strikeouts. Like I said, 29 has gotten chances in the majors before, so it's probably not going to amount to anything, but he's been hot enough for long enough that I thought Alex Call needed to be mentioned on our show.
All right. That is going to do it for fantasy baseball today, because I forgot to look up to stream or not to stream options. It's been a lot going on today, so I apologize for that. We'll get back to it on tomorrow's show. So for Scott, I am Chris. We'll see you tomorrow.